The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jameson Rabbit, and the man seated next to me, well, he's wearing a kilt. You can't see it, but his name is Mike Roth.
It's a Christmas kilt. I knew that you were going to show up being Santa Claus.
Yeah, sorry to disappoint.
I figured I needed to up the game besides just a normal shirt, so
Yeah.
I wore the kilt.
I like it.
And your picture is on my tie.
This just in, kids, Mike Roth has amazing legs. Now you know.
I let my hairs grow.
I'm more of a Santa in his downtime this week. You know? In the off time. Take the jacket off, relax. I don't want to be like Santa on Rudolph where he's just hanging out.
Out of curiosity, how long is this going to be Snow White?
I'm going to keep it all the time now. I just like being an old man.
Nice.
Yeah.
There we go. You get discounts at McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't even ask for the ID.
Senior coffee, please. This week we have a few movies on the marquee, but first we have a streaming spotlight that Mike is going to lead us into. A film from Netflix. What do we have, sir?
6 Underground. So director Michael Bay, who you
your
know how
favorite.
much I love, he makes this action, which I thought was action comedy for the most part, with Ryan Reynolds, who I absolutely love. So you got my worst director, but one of the funniest guys in action going together. What this essentially is, and also the name, you have 6 people funded by a billionaire who insists all his team just kind of ghost out. They're dead to the world, no relatives, in order to stop villains throughout the world. This villain lives in a fictional place called Turkestan, and he uses sarin gas to kill off his own people.
That's not nice.
It's not a nice thing. They need to get rid of him and put his brother, who is a nice guy, into office. And he creates this team. And in the beginning of this movie, I actually really enjoyed it. It was very over-the-top violence. Ryan Reynolds was hilarious. They had a good, interesting team. They do the kind of thing where each person is numbered. They don't have real names. Ryan Reynolds obviously plays number 1. And you get this feeling that you have this eclectic group of a bunch of different personalities. You're going to really get to know them throughout the movie, and then you don't. You just kind of... You see a lot of parkour. A lot of parkour.
Parkour.
A lot of Michael Bay type characters and actions. Every explosion has way too much phosphorus in it. And it gets into a confusing timeline where he keeps on going back and forth. There's one point where you feel like he's finally going to dive into the characters that I really thought we were going to learn about, but all it was an excuse to show more parkour, and he showed only one character. And by the third act, I was losing the steam of what I really had in the beginning of the movie, which I thought was going to be fun, and started dreading the Michael Bay ending, which goes on for 45 minutes. It's just all extremely stupid things where you're just constantly going, that's not real.
I really like the introduction to the characters and each character being a specialized in their mercenary, you got different guys, and Dave Franco is the driver, and you have Ben Hardy is the parkour guy, and all these, and then you bring in Corey Hawkins as number 7 after we lose somebody, and he's the sniper, and like I like these, like okay, everyone has their spot, we deploy the team, and it was a lot of fun, and like you said, it was over the top, and it was just really cool. And then it was like right around the time they started trying to introduce a plot to this movie, the things just kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were still moments in here. There's like a lot of pieces that I enjoyed in this movie, but as a whole, it just kind of the fun started to wane for me as the movie went along. And I mean the charisma of Ryan Reynolds is undeniable.
Yeah.
Like he's just good to watch on screen. I like him.
And throughout the whole movie, he is hilarious.
Yes.
Even in the third act where I was getting kind of,
he's still carrying his weight for sure.
But you can't save it.
It's just, it's the Michael Bay style. And I don't know. I mean, I guess if you like it, you would probably love this. If you're like, way into the Michael Bay stuff, I'm kind of here and there. He did do some things different, I thought, in this movie. I think he tried some things. This is his first movie where he's really just like free of studio constraints. Like, I'm just going to do my thing. I kind of appreciate that. I think this is like the perfect Netflix film. If this was in the box office, it would just bomb terribly, I'm sure.
I think it probably would have been decent because Michael Bay does bring in people. I don't understand that.
But less and less
Reynolds
lately.
is
Michael
awesome.
Bay's results have been less and less. I think this will get a sequel. I think this will get another Netflix movie out of it.
He spent $150 million making this. He's going to get.
Did well for Netflix.
Really?
It brings in a lot of clicks. A lot of people were watching it, and people were enjoying it. But I think it was okay.
Eventually,
I don't have any strong feelings on this movie. Like I said, there's pieces I liked, and there's pieces that just were blah to me.
Yeah, I started off extremely excited.
Yeah.
And it just turned into what I usually feel like when I see Michael Bay films, which is always pretty disappointing.
What did you end up giving Six Underground?
I give it a 2.5. It's a very mediocre score, but like I said, the beginning was awesome. It had a lot of hope.
Yeah.
And then
we all had a lot of hope at the beginning. And
Yeah.
I ended up right where you were with a 2.5-star review.
Yeah.
You can check it out if you feel like it. If you're hanging out, it's fine. Put on your folding laundry, throw this thing on.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay attention to plot.
No.
Doesn't matter.
And I think that's par with all Michael Bay films.
course.
They look pretty,
Yeah.
but don't watch it.
Every 5
Just-
minutes, something's going to explode.
Yeah.
It could be just a box of wood. It's going to explode
a bicycle.
Yeah, just boom. Speaking of explosions, this was not even tried. On the marquee, I have a film about an explosion. This is Clint Eastwood's new film, Richard Jewell. This is another in the long line of films about real-life heroes that Clint Eastwood has been fixated on making movies about. This one tells the story of the man who went from hero to villain in front of the world in an awful case of media creating a narrative. Richard Jewell, if you don't know the name or remember this man, 1996 Atlanta Olympic Games, the Summer Olympics. Richard Jewell was a security guard who discovered a suspicious package and tried alerting people to this suspicious package. The package eventually blew up, causing a lot of injuries, startling the world. A terrorist act during the Olympics we hadn't seen since the 70s. And he was hailed as a hero, rightly so, saved a lot of lives. Until suddenly, a few days later, the eye of suspicion turned to him, and the FBI named him their chief suspect in the bombing, thanks in large part to one of his former employers calling the FBI and saying, I mean, it's got to be him, because he was a weirdo when he worked for me, so he's the guy who did it, not the hero. And this film is really a scathing review of how the government and the media really worked together to really destroy a man's life and created a lasting legacy that Richard Jewell did not deserve. There's a character in here, Paul Walter Hauser plays Richard Jewell. This is the second movie now that he has played an infamous character in Olympic tragedy. He also played Sean Eckhart in the Tanya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan film a couple years ago. He played the guy who clubbed Nancy Kerrigan in the leg.
Nice.
So
I mean, well, not, but I mean.
It's kind of his thing. But we also have Sam Rockwell as Watson Bryant, who is his lawyer, who is the man who helped him stand up against the government as they attempted to railroad him and fry him, basically, for this crime. Olivia Wilde plays Kathy Scruggs. And here's the issue with this movie for me, is Kathy Scruggs was a reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. She's the one who leaked a story that the FBI was looking at him as the suspect and not as a hero. And they portray her as this lady who she slept with an FBI agent in order to get some information and then leaked it out and was really just one of these people, one of these journalists, stereotypical journalists who didn't care about anything. She just wanted to get a scoop and get a headline and didn't care how it affected anybody. She wasn't really like this in real life. None of this really happened. And they created this character that was just a mustache-twirling villain as a journalist for no reason. It felt like she was from a different movie. You had John Hamm as Agent Shaw, the FBI agent. in charge of this. And Kathy Bates played Richard Jewell's mom, and Kathy Bates is just great in everything.
Do you think they needed to make the journalist a villain like this?
For this narrative that Clint Eastwood was telling, yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Because it was like, look at what the media and the government did. And we got to villainize both of them in this innocent man's life. And they focused solely on him as a suspect, and he was vilified, and it shows the dynamic between him and his lawyer, and fought for him, and how the feds truly used deception and tried to trick him because he wasn't all there, and used some flawed logic in dealing with him. And even after they realized that it probably wasn't him, they said, we don't care. We're going to prosecute him even though we know it's not him.
That's actually really common. Yeah. It's really kind of sad.
Unfortunately, it is. You know, Richard Jewell's an odd guy, and unfortunately, like, I don't know, for me, I remember the name Richard Jewell. You talk about the 96 bombing. If you would ask me before this movie, Richard Jewell's the name I remember. I struggle to remember the guy who was the actual bomber that they caught after this.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Richard Jewell's name was out there in the press for months as they're like, no, this man was the bomber. And then they're like page 6, retraction. By the way, it wasn't him.
Curious, would this be an ending spoiler if you mentioned where is he today?
Richard Jewell? He is, I believe, oh no, he passed away a few years ago.
Oh.
He did.
Oh,
yes,
that
he just recently passed away at the age of 44. But you know, Walter Hauser was great in this movie, and Sam Rockwell was great in this movie. It's just, there's something about the Kathy Scruggs character that just, it felt unfair. It felt like just created from fiction, and it felt like it was just dropped in there into this, like, because we got to have somebody, an antagonist, and I don't know. Good performances, a story that's worth telling. Unfortunately, a story that can be told 1,000 times over about how innocent people get railroaded, and you know, the big government monolith pushes them around.
Yeah.
Richard Jewell's a decent film. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. You know,
better than Jersey Boys.
I tried to forget about that movie. I do not care for that.
I will bring it up once a year.
Thank you. What's the next movie we have on the marquee, sir? You saw a fun little horror flick, huh?
Well, not as fun as I was hoping. Black Christmas. This is a remake of the 1974, and then that went into a couple of sequels, and then they rebooted it again in 2006. Now they're trying again. This is directed by Sophia Takal. We have Imogen Poots. She plays Riley. She is a seniority woman who she had some problems dealing with a fraternity where a rape was involved. And her and her girlfriends at the sorority, they have a little pageant where they're going to stick it to the fraternity. Pretty much right after that, they've been noticing well, actually, they don't notice. Sorority girls start dying, and they end up becoming victims to a mass slaughter from a guy in a black mask and a hooded cloak. They make a big point throughout this movie about the rape culture on campus fraternities.
Okay.
They make a big point about a lot of the misogynistic attitudes towards women on campus. Unfortunately, this movie also goes into every stereotype of how women react in stressful situations that pretty much people have finished doing after the 90s.
Sure.
They trip over everything.
Of course.
They get easily flustered where they don't even know how keys work so they could get away in a car.
Got to drop those keys.
You have to drop the keys. They make really bad decisions where the whole audience is like, no, but they do it anyways because indecisive. I don't know.
A dumb girl in a horror movie.
Unfortunately, as much as a message that they wanted everybody to say, hey, this is something that's serious, that's happening right now in the fraternities and campuses, they were also doing a lot of Hollywood tropes that are pretty outdated.
Sure.
And it kind of diminished their message. And also, later on, we find out that the reason why there's all this bad things that are happening on campus is it's a supernatural reason, and that also diminishes the message that they really wanted to hit home. I like horror movies, and I like movies that stay on topic and expose things that are going on. Unfortunately, I can't recommend it to anybody who would pick either one. I appreciate the effort. I gave it a score based on the effort.
Effort alone.
But for a horror movie, it's PG-13, so you're not going to get the campy. For one thing, it's not going to be campy to you because you don't want to laugh at something that's supposed to be dealing with something very serious. You're not going to get the gore. You're not going to get the jump scares.
How is the killer? Like, was the killer a thing? I mean, or was it just...
Well, that would be the only thing that I could tell you that would be a spoiler because really, this is an extremely unimaginative, uncreative movie. It really is guessable throughout the whole thing.
Okay.
But if I tell you that is like the only thing that could be a spoiler, and once you find out, you're gonna hate it. You're gonna be like, that guy didn't do what they said they could do.
All right.
And I had a good time bashing it with my son because he was the one who saw it. We left there and we're like, we like the premise, but my gosh, they did everything possible to make sure that the premise is not going to be heard.
Sure. Good.
It's kind of unfortunate.
What did this thing end up with then?
Well, it's not an A for effort. I gave it a 2, but it got a 2 based on effort. So if you don't like...
It's like a C minus, D plus for effort, right?
It's D minus. It's really probably should have gotten a lower score, but I appreciate the effort.
You're in the Christmas spirit.
I'm in the Christmas
spirit.
You're in the
giving spirit.
And you got a bad score with the Christmas spirit in full effect.
He's an angry little elf.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
The next movie I have on the marquee for us is a sequel. We have Jumanji: The Next Level. From director Jake Kasdan. This we revisit the crew that we had in the 2017 Jumanji film. We bring back Dwayne Johnson, Jack Black, Kevin Hart, Karen Gilliam, as well as their real-life versions of these people, more the teenage, college-age kids. Spencer, what's that?
Danny DeVito?
Yes, Danny DeVito will be in here. Spencer, who was like the hero who was in the Rock Avatar in the previous film. He's rebuilt the Jumanji game. We don't really understand what's going on. He's really depressed. He's moping around when we open this movie. We're supposed to like care or understand, but they never really put any time into that. But he rebuilds the game, and he goes back in to recapture the feeling of invincibility he had when he was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And the rest of the gang attempts to go in after him when they realize that, oh man, he's gone back into Jumanji. He can't get out by himself. We got to go back in. But unfortunately, there's some glitches now. When they go in, Fridge is now in Jack Black's body. He was Kevin Hart in the previous film. Now he's in Jack Black's body. Spencer's grandpa, played by Danny DeVito, is The Rock. Okay. So you have The Rock doing a Danny DeVito impression, which is kind of fun. Danny DeVito, his grandpa's best friend and former business partner, played by Danny Glover, is now in the Kevin Hart Avatar.
Okay.
So he's doing a Danny Glover impression, which is all right. Spencer is now a new character, played by Awkwafina, in which she's a thief going after the jewel that they need to win this game.
Okay.
Martha is back in as the Karen Gilliam character. She's fine, but it's all kinds of craziness going on here, and there's they have to complete the mission to get out of the game, whatever. But there's glitches throughout the game, and so as there's glitches, the characters move into different avatars. So you have multiple people doing different impressions throughout the movie. So at one point, The Rock's doing a Danny DeVito. There's a glitch. Now somebody else is in the Rock character. And so, these actors who act as the avatars have to try and mimic different actors throughout the film. It's kind of interesting to me.
Any of these actors strong enough to pull that off?
Yeah, I think Kevin Hart did a good job with it.
Okay, good.
Jack Black was okay, It was all right. It's kind of fun. It doesn't feel as fun as the previous version of this.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I think that film was just better overall.
Yeah.
This had some fun interactions, and adding Awkwafina to the mix I thought was a lot of fun because she's great.
I didn't see her on any of the previews.
No, I didn't either.
Huh.
I didn't know she was in it until midway through the movie.
She's a major star.
She really is. But there's a tedium for the first, 20 minutes that they're into the game of the old guys, Danny DeVito and Danny Glover, not understanding they're in a video game. And that joke gets replayed over and over and over. We're in a video game? I don't understand this. That got old real quick.
Yeah.
And it also lacks the cool idea of the previous film, and casting characters against type, of putting, the quiet, nebbish guy into the Rock's body and putting the fridge into Kevin Hart's body, and that was fun and creative. And this time, it just like, well, we're just gonna mix mash, and we'll just, everyone gets to do different voices. It'd be kind of fun, and and that just kind of, I don't know. It's a decent way to pass the time. It's fun enough. But I can't recommend it like I did the previous film. Like, I loved the previous one.
The previous one was a
big surprise.
Yeah, it was, and I really enjoyed all the little surprises that they went through, because even though it's a video game, you don't expect the video game rules to come out.
Right.
I thought they would have to do something more creative in order to try to compete.
They kind of just stayed within that. They made multiple non-playable character jokes.
Okay.
It's like, okay, I liked that the first time around. Now this movie, we're still kind of making that same. Like, oh, he's an NPC, or like, oh, this character, you can't interact with him. He just says the same line over and over. Like, okay, yeah, gotcha. And so it was fine. It's fun, and there's fun interaction between these actors. They're fun to watch together. Yeah. But I don't know. I was hoping for a little more. Ultimately, I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars.
Well, there we
go. Not bad. Worth checking out. If you're looking for something, I suppose.
Yeah.
Let's take a look, though, sir. It is the Christmas time. We're talking about Christmas classics, films that we love. Gather the kids around, light the Yule log up, and let's watch a Christmas classic. We go back to what is my favorite year in films for this Christmas classic.
Year, yeah.
It really is. What do we have? Our movie throwback.
Gremlins, 1984, and yeah, there is tons of movies that came out. Ghostbusters, but this movie was the one that really captured my heart.
Yeah.
After watching Gremlins, directed by Joe Dante, my life was changed. I collect all the cards. I had the backpack.
Nice.
I had all these little records that you get at McDonald's.
Yes.
You have to get the Happy Meal. And
I have all those still.
They are so fantastic. This movie was priceless. Getting dated a little bit now, though.
Yeah.
It's a dark, if you don't know about Gremlins, you've been under a rock. And it starts off with the dad getting a mogwai, which is a rare creature that no one has ever seen. He brings it to his son Billy for a Christmas present.
3 rules attached to this thing.
3 rules, very simple. You don't get it wet.
Sure.
You don't feed it after midnight.
Easy
and
enough.
No bright lights.
Ooh.
And Billy breaks every single rule.
Billy's terrible.
And when you feed them after midnight, they turn into gremlins and they will kill you. This is a very, very dark Christmas holiday movie.
A family film. I always associate this with, because I saw it when I was 7 and loved it.
Yeah.
So I always like, oh, this is a good one. This is another one of those fun, like, family comedies of the time.
Yeah.
We got like puppets and stuff, and I collected the toys. And then you watch it, you're like, oh, that's pretty scary. Actually.
Yeah, they killed him. That's murder. That's
There's
murder right there.
Really horrendous things going on in this movie.
Yes.
This thing's getting thrown into microwaves and such.
Yeah, I was scared when I watched this, and I think part of that adrenaline.
Like just now, like.
Well, I grew
rewatching
up.
it. Oh, you're okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But then when I was younger, I was scared of it a little
the
bit.
The look and feel of this film is great.
Yep.
It opens with a really cool Christmas look to it. I like the Christmas look because Dad's going out trying to find a present Christmas Eve, and it has a really nice feel to the film. The indelible look of the Gremlins, the indelible look of Gizmo and Spike and all these things, those are like, they stand the test of time.
And you also have like the little minor things, like the relationship Billy has with Phoebe Cates.
Hey, it's got Phoebe Cates in it in the 80s. I'm watching that movie.
Yes. And even that relationship, pretty dark. Well, why doesn't she like Christmas? Well, her dad died in a chimney. That's
horrific.
That's terrible. As
horrific
Santa.
Things happen to her. Another interesting thing about Gremlins, though, is this film, along with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which had come out 2 weeks before this, were the reasons that the MPAA created the PG-13 rating. Before these 2 films came out, there was no PG-13. This was rated PG. Take your kids at your will. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And because of this, and Temple of Doom came out that summer, they said, there's got to be something between PG and R. Because these are a little rough for the 6-year-olds that are coming to check out the cute little Gizmo.
By the way, I hate to backtrack, but back to Black Christmas.
Talk to me.
It's PG-13, but really, again, with what you just said, this probably is not a good PG-13 movie. It really dealt with some
tough subjects.
Tough subjects. Rape, people get murdered. It is
Bring
a
the
slasher
13-year-old, man.
So just because there isn't a lot of horror movies out there for your kids doesn't mean that this one is.
Now, Gremlins. Gremlins 2. Where are you at on Gremlins 2?
I hated it.
Yeah?
I wanted the same feeling of 1, and they decided to take something I love and turn it into a campy mass market.
They really did, didn't
and that killed the franchise. And maybe they wanted to do that on purpose. Maybe the producers were like, you got to make another one. You got to make another one. And they're like, fine. We're going to do it. We're going to make sure it's never going to happen again.
We're going to get Siskel and Ebert in on this one.
We're going to do a Sam Raimi on like Spider-Man.
Now, there's constant talks of restarting the Gremlins franchise. Constantly. I feel like every 6 months I see an article like, is Gremlins going to happen? Is Netflix going to have a Gremlins series? Like, I feel like it's bound to happen sooner or later. It's going to happen. Yeah, I think it's something that we're going to get, especially after the success of like Dark Crystal and all these things of like, let's just do Gremlins.
I would watch it. I don't think, I mean, like I said, it is getting dated. It would be nice to have something a little bit more deeper and maybe something that just ignores that Gremlins 2 ever been made.
Would you want it set in the 80s? I mean, that 80s nostalgia is everything right now.
No, definitely.
I feel like they're really zeroing in on how to hit my heart with the 80s nostalgia lately.
Well, we're the ones who happen to have a little bit more money right now, and then they'll forget about us and we'll
move on, and suddenly we'll be Tamagotchis and Beanie Babies and will be all the nostalgia. Yeah. That thing's coming. Get ready for it. Gremlins, though, is a film worth checking out. Gather the kids together Christmas Eve. Tell Grandma to sit down. We're watching a fun Christmas film.
And then follow it up with Krampus after that because it's about the same league.
Why not? All right, sir, let's take a look at what is coming soon. And I'm looking at Christmas Day. We have our release of movies. It's a great time to go to the theater. Take the kids, head on out. The first one we have is a film that we talked about last week, but is moving into wide release on Christmas Day, Uncut Gems. The Adam Sandler A24 film is moving into wide release Christmas Day. I'm looking forward to that. Spies in Disguise, the new animated film. This is the newest film from Fox Animation since the Disney buyout. This stars Will Smith as a spy who gets turned into a pigeon.
And we've been seeing the previews for this forever.
From the people who brought you Rio and Ice Age. So we got that. Movie that I'm really looking forward to, a couple of them actually. 1917.
That looks
Sent
great.
a couple guys to the front lines to stop a ambush, killing a bunch of troops. Looks really good to me every time I see a trailer. And then another one, Little Women. This cast and crew is Greta Gerwig writing and directing, stars Saoirse Ronan, Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, and Timothée Chalamet. That's like a whole bunch of things I love.
Just do
Little Women comes out like every 4 years, I feel like. Something like that. Yeah, but this group, I'm all on board with this. There's like 15 Oscar nominees in here. That's all that's coming out Christmas Day.
Be sure to get there early because you are going to be battling probably a lot of people, and there is Star Wars coming out.
Star Wars Hangover still hanging. That'll be there for quite a while.
Yeah.
Before we leave, we have to thank our sponsor. If you tuned into last week's show, you saw us sitting there in the beautiful confines of the Palace Cinema with the great Tom Reichelt. We thank him again for joining us last week and thank him for sponsoring this and making it all possible. We do appreciate that. Go check them out on your Christmas break.
Yeah,
why not?
Definitely.
Just don't take my seat, all right? J13, that's for this kid. Don't stay out of it, people.
Is that what you got for Star Wars?
No. It was a take what you could get situation with Star Wars. Beggars can't be choosers. Next week, we're going to be talking about the aforementioned Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. Rise. We also have Bombshell. Mike will be talking about Cats.
Probably, yeah. Yep.
I'm not. And we have a streaming spotlight.
10 years from now, I'm going to bring that
20
up as
years,
our
I said. This will be our Titanic. 20 years. We also have a streaming spotlight on Netflix, The Two Popes, starring Jonathan Pryce and Anthony Hopkins as two popes. That's why the name.
Creative.
Very creative. So that's what we'll be talking about on next week's show. We'll also be talking about, things that Mike is getting for Christmas,
Everybody have safe holidays. Put down the eggnog. It will give you a heart attack.
I have a moose mug for my eggnog.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. I know exactly where that's from.
Yeah? It's pretty good stuff. I just don't like eggnog, so I don't know what to put in it.
Oh, you just put more brandy.
A little less eggnog in that, please. Brown that eggnog up for me. Yeah, anyways. That will be what we're doing next week for our Christmas show. But until that time, I'm Jameson.
I'm Mike Roth.
Ho, ho, ho.